Must you go now?
I must. It is my duty.
Then return to me.
I will, I promise.
Have you ever felt your heart turn to ice while your body burned alive? I have.
I felt the exact moment my soul decided it would rather incinerate than
Continue beating for a man who could watch me die without flinching. They say when a mate bond breaks, you hear your soul screaming.
Mate bond.
They're wrong. When a mate bond breaks, you don't hear anything at all. Because the sound is so loud, it transcends hearing. It becomes a physical thing. A blade made of silence that cuts through every cell in your body.
I was 24 years old, 9 months pregnant, standing before the Silverfang Pack Council when everything I knew about love, loyalty, and worth turned to ash in my mouth. The man who'd traced the curve of my pregnant belly just weeks before and whispered promises about our future stood like carved marble while 15 wolves voted to exile me. 12 voices saying, "Cast her out," 2 saying, "Show mercy," and 1, the only one that mattered, saying absolutely nothing. Alpha Jareth Silverclaw, my mate, my husband of 6 years, the father of the twins kicking inside me and the 2 daughters waiting at home for a mother who would never return.
You said nothing, and that silence, it hurt me more than any rejection ever could. You left me to break without even a word.
My name is Alina Nightshade, and I was the Luna of Silverfang Pack.
Past tense. Because apparently, a Luna whose wolf goes dormant during pregnancy is defective.
A Luna who bears daughters instead of sons is a curse. A Luna who shows vulnerability deserves to be discarded like spoiled meat. They called me weak. They called me broken. They called me dormant.
They had no idea what was sleeping in my blood, waiting for the moment I'd need it most.
This is the story of how I went from banished and bleeding to divine and unstoppable. How I learned that what they called dormancy was actually the Phoenix goddess herself, making room in my soul for fire that would burn their world to the ground and rebuild it from the ashes. This is the story of how I died giving birth alone in a cursed forest, and how I rose as something they should have prayed they'd never see. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the council meeting that ended my old life, to the moment the cold in Jareth's eyes froze the last piece of my heart that still believed in him. Before we continue, thank you for choosing to spend your time with Alina's story. If you're feeling it, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what drew you to Judy's romance library. Your voice matters here, and it genuinely helps us keep bringing you these stories. Now, let's step into the council chamber where everything changes. Chapter 1. The Judgment. The Silverfang Council chamber smelled like cedar smoke and something darker, the sharp, metallic scent of fear. My fear, specifically, though I tried to hold my head high. I stood in the center of the circular room, my hands cradling my swollen belly where my babies, my twin daughters, I'd learned just days ago, kicked and rolled, blissfully unaware that their mother was on trial for the crime of carrying them. Around me, in a crescent of high-backed chairs carved from blackwood and inlaid with silver, sat the 15 members of the Silverfang Pack Council. Above them all, on the Alpha's throne, a massive seat carved from a single piece of ancient oak and crowned with wolf heads, worked in silver, sat Jareth. Alpha Jareth Silverclaw, my mate, my husband, the man who'd once told me he'd wage war on the moon itself if it meant keeping me safe. He wouldn't look at me. His ice blue eyes, the ones that used to soften when they found me across a room, now fixed on some point above my head. Distant, disconnected, dead. That's when I knew. Before a single word was spoken, I knew I'd already lost. Luna Alina Nightshade. Elder Kalen's voice cut through the chamber, sharp and cold as a winter wind. He was the oldest member of the council, and the cruelest. You stand before this council to answer for your failures as Luna of Silverfang Pack. Failures. The word landed like a stone in my chest. Your first failure, Kalen continued, unrolling a scroll with deliberate slowness, as if he had all the time in the world to destroy me, is your inability to produce a male heir. In 6 years of marriage to our alpha, you have birthed 2 daughters. While female children have their uses, they do not secure the bloodline. They cannot inherit. They cannot lead. A Luna's sacred duty is to ensure succession through strong male offspring. My jaw clenched so hard I tasted copper. My daughters Alara, 5 years old, and Mira, 3, were not useful. They were brilliant, fierce, tender-hearted little girls who deserved a world that celebrated them instead of measuring their worth by what dangled between their legs. Your second failure, Kalen said, his pale eyes sweeping over my pregnant form with open disgust, is your current condition. 9 months into this pregnancy, you have lost your ability to shift. Your wolf has gone dormant. This is a sign of corrupted Luna blood, a sign of weakness. A true Luna's wolf would never abandon her. My wolf didn't abandon me, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Dormancy during pregnancy is rare, but it's documented. My wolf is protecting the— Your wolf is dead, Elder Morgana interrupted, her voice dripping venom. And a Luna without a wolf is no Luna at all. You are human at best, a liability at worst. A drain on pack resources, Elder Thorn added. 3 pregnancies in 6 years, and what do we have to show for it? 2 daughters and another set of twins, also daughters, according to the healer's report, growing in a womb that cannot even sustain a wolf spirit. The words hit like claws. Also daughters, my beautiful twin girls, not even born yet, already condemned. I searched for Jareth's eyes, desperate for him to say something, anything, to defend me, to defend our children. He stared at the wall. There is also the matter, Kalen said, his voice dropping to a theatrical hush, of the bond. My blood went cold. The Alpha has reported that the mate bond has weakened, that he no longer feels the pull, the connection. This, combined with your wolf's dormancy, suggests the bond itself was flawed from the beginning, a mistake of the moon goddess, perhaps. Or, his lips curved into something cruel, a deception on your part. That's not true, I breathed. Jareth, tell them. The Alpha has given his testimony. Kalen cut me off. Your word against his is no contest. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the wooden rail in front of me to keep from falling. Luna Alina Nightshade, Kalen intoned, this council will now vote on your fate. The charges are failure to produce a male heir, loss of wolf spirit, and suspicion of bond fraud. The punishment, should you be found guilty, is exile to the Forsaken Vale and formal rejection of the mate bond. Exile to the Forsaken Vale, a death sentence. The Vale was a cursed stretch of forest at the northern border where magic went wrong and wolves went mad. No one who entered ever returned. All in favor of exile and rejection, Kalen said. Say aye. Aye, Elder Morgana's voice, sharp and satisfied. Aye, Elder Thorn. Aye, aye, aye. The voices piled on top of each other, a cascade of condemnation. I counted them, each one a nail in my coffin. 12. 12 voices sealing my fate. All opposed, Kalen said, though his tone suggested he already knew. Nay, Elder Soren, the youngest council member, his voice quiet but firm. Nay, Elder Beatrice, the healer, her face twisted with anguish. Two voices in a sea of cruelty. Kalen turned to Jareth. Alpha Silverclaw, as is your right, you may cast the deciding vote, or you may abstain. This was it, the moment. Jareth could save me. He could stop this. One word and I'd be safe. I looked at him, really looked at him, memorizing the face of the man I'd loved with everything in me. The sharp line of his jaw, the silver streak in his black hair, the scar above his left eyebrow from the time he'd defended me against a rogue attack. "Jareth," I whispered, "please." He met my eyes for the first time, and what I saw there was worse than hatred. Nothing. He felt nothing. "I abstain," he said. The words echoed in the chamber. Final, absolute. The floor dropped out from under me. "The vote is decided," Kaelin announced. "Luna Alina Nightshade, you are hereby stripped of your title, your rank, and your place in this pack. You will be escorted to the border of the Forsaken Vale at dawn. Alpha Silverclaw will perform the rejection ceremony immediately." "No, no, 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 no." Jareth stood, descended the steps from his throne, walked toward me with the mechanical precision of a man performing a duty, not destroying a life. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could smell him pine and snow and the scent that used to mean home. "I, Alpha Jareth Silverclaw, reject you, Alina Nightshade, as my mate and my Luna." The bond didn't just break, it exploded. Have you ever had your chest cracked open while you were still conscious? Have you ever felt your soul being ripped out through your ribs? The pain was beyond anything I could have imagined. It was fire and ice and every bone in my body shattering at once. I screamed a sound I didn't recognize as my own and fell to my knees. And that's when the first contraction hit. A white-hot band of agony wrapped around my belly and squeezed. My water broke, a flood of warmth soaking through my dress and pooling on the council chamber floor. "No," I gasped. "Not now. Please, not now." But my babies didn't care about timing. They were coming. "Get her out of here," Kaelin said with disgust. "She's making a mess." 2 guards hauled me to my feet. I couldn't stand, couldn't breathe. The contractions were coming fast, too fast, my body trying to expel my daughters into a world that had already condemned them. They dragged me through the halls of the pack house, my home for 6 years, and out into the night. The cold air bit at my skin. Through the haze of pain, I saw faces. Pack members I'd healed, children I'd taught, wolves I'd considered family. They all looked away. The guards threw me into a cart. The last thing I saw before the canvas cover blocked my view was Jareth, standing in the doorway of the pack house, his face carved from stone. Then the cart lurched forward, carrying me toward the Forsaken Vale, toward death. Another contraction ripped through me, and I curled around my belly, my babies, the only things in this world I had left to fight for. "Hold on," I whispered to them, tears streaming down my face. "Please, hold on. I'm going to get us through this. I'm going to..." But I didn't believe it. How could I? I was going to die. We were all going to die. I didn't know then that death was exactly what needed to happen. I didn't know that in the ashes of Alina Nightshade, something infinitely more dangerous would be born. I didn't know that the Phoenix Goddess was already watching, already choosing, already preparing to set the world on fire. Chapter 2. The Burning Cradle. The Forsaken Vale smelled like rot and regret. The guards dumped me at the tree line like garbage, and I heard the cartwheels retreating before I could even lift my head from the dirt. The contractions were constant now, a vice of agony that made breathing impossible and thinking even harder. I crawled forward on my hands and knees, my white dress, the one I'd worn to council, thinking it might remind them I was still their Luna, now brown with mud and dark with blood. The forest swallowed sound. No birds, no insects. Just the ragged sawing of my own breath and the wet sounds of my body trying to tear itself apart to bring life into a place meant only for death. I made it maybe 30 feet before my arms gave out. I rolled onto my side, curling around my belly, and felt the terrible pressure building. They were coming. My daughters were coming, and I had no strength left, no supplies, no help, just cursed earth and dying trees, and the absolute certainty that none of us would see morning. "I'm sorry." I sobbed, my hands pressing against my stomach. "I'm so sorry. You deserved better than this. You deserved everything, and I couldn't give you anything." The next contraction bent me in half. I screamed into the dirt, tasted blood, and felt something give way inside me. The pressure shifted, changed, and I knew with animal certainty that I had to push. Had to, even though it would kill me, even though we'd all die here in the dark. I pushed. The world went white. I pushed again, and something tore, and then there was a sensation of release so profound I nearly blacked out. Wetness, heat, and then silence. The terrible, suffocating silence of a baby who should be crying but isn't. My hands shook as I reached down, felt the tiny body slick with blood and fluid, brought her to my chest. A girl, perfect and still. Her lips were blue. She wasn't breathing. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no, breathe, please breathe." I tried to clear her airway with trembling fingers, tried to remember what the pack healer had taught me, but my vision was darkening at the edges, and my hands wouldn't work right, and she was so small, so impossibly small and still. "Please," I begged the empty forest. "Please, someone, anyone." The temperature spiked. It happened so fast I thought I was hallucinating. One moment the veil was cold enough to see my breath, and the next, heat rolled through the clearing like a living thing. The shadows didn't creep back from the light, they evaporated. Burned away by a radiance so bright I had to close my eyes against it. When I opened them, she was standing there. She wasn't standing, actually. She was floating, hovering 3 feet above the ground, and she was made of fire, not consumed by it, made of it. Her hair was flames that moved like silk. Her dress was woven from light itself, gold and crimson and white hot. Her wings, oh God, her wings spread behind her like a sunset given form, each feather a tongue of fire that didn't burn, didn't consume, just was. "Alina Nightshade," she said, and her voice was the crackling of logs in a hearth and the roar of a wildfire all at once. Luna of nothing, mother of daughters, vessel of the sleeping flame. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, could barely breathe. She descended until her feet bare and glowing touched the blood-soaked earth. The ground beneath her didn't burn. It bloomed. Flowers I'd never seen before, petals of gold and crimson, sprouted from the cursed soil and opened toward her like she was the sun. "I am Seraphina," she said, "Phoenix goddess, keeper of the sacred flame, and I have been waiting for you." "My baby," I choked out. "Please, my baby isn't breathing, please." Seraphina knelt beside me, and the heat radiating from her skin should have burned me, but instead felt like sinking into a warm bath after a lifetime in the cold. She gathered my daughter from my arms with a tenderness that made my chest crack open all over again. "This one," Seraphina murmured, tracing a finger over my daughter's blue lips, "will be called Rylan, the Ember Child, and she will burn brighter than any wolf who ever lived." She pressed her palm to Rylan's chest. Light flared between them, gold and blinding, and then a cough, a sputter, and finally, the piercing wail of a newborn discovering her lungs. I sobbed, reached for her. Seraphina placed Rylan in my arms, and my daughter alive, pink, screaming with furious life, latched onto me like she'd never let go. "Thank you," I gasped. "Thank you, I don't know how to—" "There is another," Seraphina said quietly. I'd forgotten. In the chaos and terror and impossible miracle, I'd forgotten there were two. Another contraction hit, weaker this time, my body running on fumes and divine intervention. Seraphina's hand pressed against my lower back, and warmth flooded through me. Not healing, exactly, more like being held together by sheer will. "Push," she commanded, And I did. The second baby came faster, easier, impossibly. She slid into Seraphina's waiting hands, and this one cried immediately, her voice strong and clear. Ember, Seraphina named her, for the spark that refuses to die. She cleaned both babies with a gesture, wrapping them in cloth that appeared from nowhere, and laid Ember beside her sister in my arms. 2 perfect daughters, alive, breathing, mine. Why? I whispered. Why save us? Seraphina's eyes, molten gold with no whites, no pupils, just liquid fire, met mine. Your wolf went dormant because there was no room for her. When a vessel is chosen to carry divinity, something must give way. Your pack saw weakness. I saw preparation. You were making room for me, Alina. Your wolf knew. She stepped aside so that when your soul shattered, there would be space for the fire to rush in. I don't understand. You will. She reached out and pressed her palm to my chest, right over my heart. The heat was instant and absolute. I felt my skin sear, smelled burning flesh, and screamed, but I couldn't pull away. Her hand was a brand, and the brand was changing me at a cellular level. I felt my wolf, dormant for months, wake with a howl that shook my bones. But she wasn't alone anymore. There was something else sharing space in my soul, something vast and ancient and burning. When Seraphina pulled her hand away, I looked down and saw it, a mark on my chest, glowing beneath my skin. A phoenix in flight, wings spread, rendered in lines of gold that pulsed with my heartbeat. The phoenix sigil, Seraphina said. You are marked, Alina Nightshade. You are chosen, and you are mine. Power flooded through me. I felt every cell in my body ignite and remake itself. The pain from the birth vanished. The exhaustion evaporated. I looked at my hands and watched as flames danced across my palms, golden and harmless and utterly impossible. What did you do to me? I breathed. I gave you what you needed to survive what comes next. I gave you fire. Now stand, Phoenix Luna. Your daughters are safe. But there are others in this forest who are not. Others who were thrown away, deemed weak, left to die. Seraphina's smile was sharp enough to cut. You're going to find them, and you're going to teach them that ash is just another word for potential. She began to fade, her form dissolving into embers that drifted upward like reverse snow. Wait, I called. Where are you going? I'm not going anywhere. I'm inside you now. In your blood. In your bones. When you need me, I'll be there. Her voice echoed even as her body disappeared. But first, you need to learn what it means to burn. And then she was gone. Just me and my daughters and the flowers blooming in cursed soil and the fire dancing across my skin like it had always belonged there. I stood. It should have been impossible. I'd just given birth to twins alone in a death forest. But I stood, and I felt strong, felt powerful. Felt like I could rip the moon from the sky if I wanted to. I looked down at Rylan and Ember, both sleeping peacefully against my chest, wrapped in divine cloth. Your father thought he was throwing us away, I whispered to them. He thought he was watching us die, but all he did was give the Phoenix goddess exactly what she needed. A soul broken enough to remake, a woman desperate enough to burn the world down. I turned toward the deeper part of the veil. Seraphina said there were others like me, cast out and left to rot. It was time to find them. Time to build something from the ashes of what we'd lost. Time to teach the wolves that fire always rises. Chapter 3. Trial by Fire. The first exile I found was hanging from a tree. Not dead, not yet, but close. She was maybe 16, her wrists bound with silver-laced rope that burned her skin, her feet dangling 2 feet off the ground. Her face was swollen, her breathing shallow, and when I got close enough I could smell the infection setting in from the silver poisoning. "Hold on," I said, and flame erupted from my palm before I'd consciously decided to call it. The fire didn't burn me, didn't even feel hot. It felt like an extension of my hand, natural as breathing. I directed it upward, let it eat through the rope, and caught the girl as she fell. She was light, too light, starved. "Please," she rasped. "Please just let me die. It hurts too much." "Absolutely not." I laid her on the ground, Rylan and Ember still sleeping in the sling I'd fashioned from Seraphina's cloth. I pressed my palm to the girl's chest the way the goddess had done to me, and willed the fire to heal instead of harm. It took 3 tries before anything happened. The first time, nothing. The second time, the girl's shirt started smoking and I yanked my hand back, horrified. The third time, I thought about intention instead of just power. Thought about the warmth of healing, of cell regeneration, of wounds closing. Golden light spread from my palm into the girl's body. The silver burns faded. The swelling went down. Color returned to her face. Her eyes snapped open, glowing briefly with reflected fire, and she gasped. What did you do?" "Saved you," I said simply. "What's your name?" "Kira." She sat up slowly, staring at her healed wrists in disbelief. "Kira Ashwood. I was from the Dark Moon Pack. They exiled me because I'm barren. Said a she-wolf who can't breed is worthless." Rage, white-hot and immediate, flared in my chest. The air around us shimmered with heat. "You're not worthless," I said, and I meant it with every burning cell in my body. "And they're going to regret throwing you away." Over the next 3 days, I found 5 more. An Omega male named Torin who'd been exiled for refusing to fight in a pointless territory war. An elderly healer named Marin who'd been cast out when she could no longer keep up with the pack's forced marches. Twin brothers, Ash and Cinder, who'd been born with malformed back legs and abandoned as pups, and a young mother named Leora whose crime was loving someone from a rival pack. I found them dying in ditches, starving in caves, fighting off veil-mad creatures with nothing but desperation and spite. And I saved them. Every single one. But saving them was only the first step. Keeping them alive in the Veil required power, and power required control. Control I didn't have. The fire came when I was angry, which was often. It came when I was scared, which was constant. It came when I was sleeping and woke to find my hands glowing and the ground around me scorched in a perfect circle. "You're trying to control it." Seraphina's voice echoed in my mind on the 4th night as I sat by the fire pit I'd created accidentally, by getting frustrated with trying to start a normal fire and setting an entire clearing ablaze. "That's your first mistake." "Then what am I supposed to do?" I muttered, not expecting an answer. "Stop controlling, start listening." I closed my eyes, took a breath, and for the first time since the goddess had marked me, I stopped trying to push the fire down or direct it or make it behave. I just felt it. It was alive. Not sentient exactly, but responsive. Like a wolf, it had its own nature, its own needs. It wanted to burn, yes, but it also wanted to warm, to illuminate, to transform. I opened my eyes and held out my hand. This time, instead of summoning fire, I asked it to come, asked it to take shape. A bird materialized in my palm, a phoenix, small and perfect, made entirely of flame. It looked at me with eyes of liquid gold, chirped once, then dissolved into embers. "There," Seraphina whispered. "Now you're learning." By the end of the first week, I could call fire without thinking, could shape it into weapons, shields, wings, could send it out to hunt game and bring it back cooked perfectly, could heal wounds and burn away infections and keep my daughters warm through the cold Veil nights. And I taught the others. Not the fire that was mine alone, apparently, but I taught them how to survive, how to set traps, how to move quietly through the cursed forest, how to identify which plants were edible and which would kill you. Marin, the healer, knew things even I didn't, and together we turned our makeshift camp into something resembling a home. But it was Torin who changed everything. "There are more," he said one night as we sat around the fire. "More exiles. I heard them while I was foraging today. North of here, maybe 3 miles. Sounded like at least a dozen voices." "A dozen?" Leora breathed. That's a whole pack's worth." "Not a pack," I said quietly, watching the flames dance. "The discarded. The ones every pack decided weren't worth keeping." "So what do we do?" Ash asked, his malformed legs stretched out in front of him. "Hide? Hope they don't find us?" I stood. The phoenix sigil on my chest pulsed warm beneath my shirt. "No," I said. "We find them, and we offer them the same thing I'm offering you. A choice. Stay here and die alone, scattered and forgotten. Or join us, build something new. Something that doesn't measure worth by how well you can fight or breed or submit." "You're talking about starting a pack," Marin said slowly. "In the Forsaken Vale." "I'm talking about starting a revolution," I corrected. "The packs threw us away because we didn't fit their broken system. Fine. We'll build our own system. One where being different isn't a death sentence, where showing vulnerability doesn't mean you deserve to suffer." I looked at each of them, this collection of the discarded, the damaged, the deemed worthless. Serafina chose me because my soul was broken enough to remake, because I was desperate enough to do what needed to be done. I thought this power was about revenge, about making Jareth pay for what he did. I shook my head. "But this is bigger than him, bigger than Silverfang. Every single one of you is proof that the pack's way of deciding who matters is not just wrong, it's wasteful, cruel, and it ends with us." Kira stood first, then Torin, then, one by one, all of them. "What do we call ourselves?" Cinder asked, his eyes reflecting the firelight. I thought about ash, about things that burned and what rose from the remains, about my daughters, sleeping peacefully in a forest meant to kill them, alive because I'd refused to let death be the final answer. "The sanctuary of cinders," I said, "because we're all what's left after the fire, and we're building something from it that they'll never be able to burn down." Serafina's laughter echoed warm in my mind. "Finally," she seemed to say, "finally, you understand." I looked north, toward where Torin said he'd heard the other exiles, toward the dozen more souls waiting to be found. And beyond that, far beyond the Vale's cursed borders, I felt the faint pull of Silverfang Pack, of Jareth, of my daughters Ilara and Mira, who I'd left behind. "Soon," I whispered. "Soon I'm coming back. And when I do, you're all going to learn what happens when you mistake ash for ending." The fire in my chest blazed hotter. The phoenix was learning to fly, and when she returned to the world that tried to kill her, she wouldn't be begging for her place back. She'd be burning the whole system to the ground. Chapter 4. The Silent Coup. Word spread through the network of the discarded faster than wildfire. Whispers in the shadows of pack territories. Messages carved into trees at the borders where exiles were dumped. A symbol, a phoenix rising, burned into the bark with precision that could only come from divine fire, and beneath it, always the same message: "You are not forgotten. Follow the flame." 3 months after Serafina marked me, the sanctuary of cinders numbered 47. 47 wolves who'd been thrown away for crimes ranging from too old to too gentle to loved the wrong person. We'd transformed a section of the Forsaken Vale that should have killed us into something that looked almost like home. Gardens growing in soil I'd purified with fire. Shelters built from fallen trees. A community center where Marin taught healing and I taught survival, and everyone, regardless of their past rank, had a voice. But the sanctuary was only the foundation. The real work happened in the dead of night, when I left my daughters sleeping in Kira's careful watch and slipped beyond the Vale's borders. The first pack I infiltrated was Nightridge. They'd recently exiled a teenage boy for being gay, throwing him out during the full moon with nothing but the clothes on his back. I found him shivering in a ravine 2 miles from their territory, hypothermic and convinced he deserved it. "They're wrong," I told him, and pressed my palm to his chest before he could flinch away. The phoenix sigil blazed between us, and I felt the power transfer, not all of it, just enough. A spark, a ember of the divine fire that now lived in me. His eyes flared gold, and warmth flooded back into his frozen limbs. "You're not broken. You're not wrong. And you're going to help me teach them that." His name was Davin, and he was the first of what I started calling the Ember-marked. Not full phoenix bearers like me, but touched by the goddess's fire, strong enough to survive. Brave enough to fight back. I marked 12 more over the next month, each one an exile from a different pack, each one carrying a piece of divine fire and a burning desire to prove their former families wrong. I sent them back to the borders of their old territories with instructions. Watch, listen, and wait. When the time came, they'd know what to do. Meanwhile, reports filtered back to the sanctuary about the packs themselves, and the news was delicious. Silverfang was eating itself alive from the inside. Jareth had taken a new mate within weeks of exiling me, a female named Cassandra from a neighboring pack, young and vicious and hungry for power. According to Davin, who'd befriended an Omega from Silverfang's border patrol, she was everything the council thought they wanted. Strong wolf, aggressive, dominant. She was also tearing the pack apart. Cassandra demanded tributes from the lower-ranked wolves, hoarded resources, played favorites with brutal efficiency. The Omegas were starving. The elders were being ignored. And Jareth, apparently, had checked out completely. He spent his days locked in his office, barely speaking, a ghost of the alpha he'd once been. "The bond severance broke something in him," Torin reported after speaking with a Silverfang refugee who'd fled rather than submit to Cassandra's reign. "They say he doesn't sleep. Doesn't eat. Just stares at the wall where your portrait used to hang. Good. Let him rot in the emptiness he created." But it wasn't just Silverfang. Pack after pack was showing cracks. Nightridge's alpha had been challenged twice in 1 month, unheard of, because the younger wolves were tired of the old bigotries. Darkmoon, Kira's former pack, had lost 1/3 of their hunting grounds to a rival pack because they'd exiled so many skilled trackers they couldn't defend their borders anymore. The system was collapsing under its own cruelty. I was just helping it along. "You're building an army," Marin observed one night as I returned from marking my 15th exile. She sat by the fire, grinding herbs, her wise eyes knowing. "I'm building an option," I corrected, warming my hands over the flames. "When this system finally breaks, and it will, there needs to be something better waiting to rise from the ashes. Something that doesn't measure worth by dominance or breeding or how well you can hurt people. And when it breaks," Marin said quietly, "you're going to make sure it breaks hard." I smiled, and it wasn't a kind expression. "Oh, absolutely. I'm going to break it so thoroughly they'll have to build something new just to survive. And that something new? It's going to look a lot like this." I gestured to the sanctuary around us, where an elderly Omega was teaching combat moves to a former pack heir, where Rylan and Ember played with children who'd been deemed defective, where worth was measured in kindness instead of kill counts. Seraphina's voice hummed warm in my mind. "You're learning, Phoenix. But there's one more thing you need to see before you're ready for the final confrontation." "What?" I whispered. "Your daughters, the ones you left behind. You need to see what's become of them." My blood went cold, then hot, then cold again. Ilara and Mira, 5 and 3 years old when I left, 6 and 4 now. I'd forced myself not to think about them, told myself they were safer without me, that Jareth would at least protect his own children even if he'd destroyed their mother. but Seraphina's tone suggested otherwise. I need to go to Silverfang, I announced, standing abruptly. That's suicide, Kira said. They'll smell you coming a mile away. Not if I don't want them to. I called the fire, let it wrap around me like a second skin, and felt my scent disappear. Felt my presence become nothing more than a shimmer of heat in the air. Another trick I'd learned, the phoenix could burn away everything, including evidence of her own existence. When? Torin asked, already knowing he couldn't stop me. Tonight. I need to see them. Just once. I need to know they're okay. But even as I said it, Seraphina's silence told me everything I needed to know. They weren't okay. And when I saw what had been done to my daughters, the final burn wouldn't just be inevitable. It would be mercy. Chapter 5. Embers of the Past. I reached Silverfang territory just after midnight, moving through the forest like smoke, silent, invisible, burning with purpose. The pack borders I'd once walked freely now felt foreign, hostile. The scent markers had changed. Cassandra's musk overpowered everything, a declaration of dominance so aggressive it made my wolf snarl in my chest. Yes, my wolf. She'd woken fully 2 weeks ago, no longer dormant but transformed. She was larger now, threaded with veins of gold, her eyes the same molten color as Seraphina's. We were one creature now, woman, wolf, and phoenix, all burning in the same skin. I slipped past 3 patrol routes, my fire-cloaked presence registering as nothing more than a warm breeze. The pack house rose before me, exactly as I remembered it, massive, imposing. The place I'd called home for 6 years. The place that had spit me out to die. I found the girls' room on the 2nd floor, the window I used to open on summer nights to let in the cool air. It was closed now, locked from the inside. I pressed my palm to the glass and let heat spiderweb through it, melting the lock without shattering anything. The window swung open silently, and I saw them. Elara and Mira, sleeping in beds that were too small, under blankets that were too thin. But that wasn't what made my heart stop. It was the bruises. Elara had a mark on her cheek, purple and fresh. Mira's arms were wrapped in bandages, and when I crept closer, moving silent as a prayer, I saw more. Scratches on Elara's neck. A split lip on Mira that had scabbed over, signs of violence that no child should ever wear. The fire in my chest roared to life, and I had to clamp down on it hard to keep from incinerating the entire pack house where I stood. Mama? I spun. Elara was awake, her eyes so much like Jareth's, ice blue and sharp-wide with disbelief. Shh, baby, it's okay, I whispered, rushing to her bedside and pulling her into my arms. She was so thin, so fragile. It's me. I'm here. You're dead, she whispered against my shoulder. Cassandra said you died, that you were weak, and the veil killed you and we should forget you, because remembering makes us weak too. The rage that swept through me was biblical. I felt the phoenix sigil burn so hot I had to pull back before it scared my daughter. I'm not dead, I managed. And you are not weak. Who hurt you, Elara? Who did this? Cassandra. Mira's voice, small and sleep-rough, came from the other bed. She was awake now too, staring at me like I was a ghost. Maybe I was. She says we're defective because we're girls. She makes us train with the warriors but gives us broken practice weapons so we fail. When we fail, she punishes us. And Daddy? I barely recognized my own voice. Daddy doesn't see us anymore, Elara said, tears starting to track down her bruised cheek. He's like a statue. He walks around, but he doesn't talk, doesn't smile, doesn't stop Cassandra when she broke off, sobbing, and I held both my daughters while the fire in my soul screamed for blood. This was my fault. I'd left them here. I'd trusted that even if Jareth hated me, he'd protect them. But he'd done worse than fail to protect them. He'd abandoned them. let his new mate abuse them while he rotted in his own guilt and grief. Listen to me, I said, pulling back and looking both girls in the eyes. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to make it so no one ever hurts you again. But I need you to be brave for just a little bit longer. Can you do that? Are you taking us with you? Mira asked, hope breaking through her fear. Everything in me wanted to say yes, wanted to grab them and run and never look back. But Serafina's voice cut through the impulse. Not yet. If you take them now, he'll hunt you. He'll use them against you. You need to break him first. Break the system. Then they'll be truly safe. I hated that she was right. Soon, I promised instead. Very soon. But first I need to do something. I need to make sure this never happens to any other little girls. That no other mothers get thrown away for having daughters instead of sons. I pulled out 2 small stones from my pocket, pieces of ember I'd brought specifically for this. I'd been carrying them for weeks, not sure why, but now I knew. I pressed one into each girl's palm and let a spark of fire, gentle, warm, protective, sink into the stones. These will keep you safe, I told them. If anyone tries to hurt you, hold these tight and think of me. They'll burn hot enough to make them stop, but they won't hurt you, I promise. When will you come back? Alara asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3. There's something I need to do first. But when I come back, baby, I'm not coming as your mother begging for scraps. I'm coming as the Phoenix. And I'm going to burn everything that hurt us down to ash. I kissed them both, memorized the weight of them in my arms, and climbed back out the window before I could change my mind. Outside, I stood in the shadow of the pack house and let myself feel it. All the rage, all the grief, all the absolute incandescent fury at a system so broken it let children suffer for the crime of being born female. The fire didn't just burn in my chest anymore. It consumed me, remade me, and when I opened my eyes, I knew they were glowing gold. Serafina manifested beside me, her phoenix form smaller now, more integrated into who I was becoming. The final burn, she said simply. Yes, my voice came out layered, woman and wolf and goddess speaking as one. I've built the sanctuary. I've marked the exiles. I've given them an alternative. Now it's time to make sure they know the old way is dead. The festival of the new moon is in 2 weeks, Serafina said. Jareth will bond with Cassandra officially. All the packs will be there, all the alphas. Perfect. Let them gather. Let them celebrate their cruel hierarchies and their toxic traditions one last time. Because I was going to crash their festival like a falling star. And when the smoke cleared, they'd have a choice: evolve or burn. I looked back at the window where my daughters slept, holding their ember stones. I'm coming for you, I whispered. And heaven help anyone who stands between me and my children. The phoenix spread her wings. The final burn was 2 weeks away. Let them prepare. Let them gather their armies and their alphas and their certainty that might makes right. It wouldn't matter. Fire doesn't negotiate. It transforms. Chapter 6. The Great Rebirth. The festival of the new moon drew every major pack within 3 territories. They came in their finest ceremonial dress, alphas and lunas processing through Silverfang's grand courtyard like this was a celebration instead of a funeral for everything they'd built on the backs of the broken. Torches lined the pathways. Musicians played. The air smelled of roasted meat and expensive wine and the self-satisfaction of people who'd never questioned whether their power was earned or stolen. I watched from the tree line, cloaked in fire that bent light around me, invisible. Beside me stood Kira, Torin, Marin, and 20 of the Ember-marked, all of them radiating barely contained fury. In the sanctuary, the rest of our people waited with my daughters Rylan and Ember tucked safely in Davin's care. Alara and Mira rescued 3 days ago in a midnight extraction that had gone smoother than breathing. There must be 200 wolves down there, Torin murmured. 3 packs worth, plus Silverfang. Good, I said. Let them all see. Let them all witness what happens when you build a kingdom on cruelty. In the center of the courtyard, on a raised platform decorated with silver and moonflowers, Jareth stood beside Cassandra. He looked hollowed out, a shell wearing an alpha's face. She looked triumphant, her hand possessively on his arm, already playing the role of Luna before the ceremony had even begun. Elder Kalen raised his hands for silence. The crowd settled. We gather on this sacred new moon to witness the bonding of Alpha Jareth Silverclaw, and I stepped out of the trees. The fire I'd been holding back exploded outward in a column of golden-red flame that shot 50 feet into the air. Every torch in the courtyard extinguished simultaneously, plunging the festival into darkness broken only by my light. I walked forward, and with each step, flowers of fire bloomed in my footprints, burning but never consuming, living flames that painted the ground behind me. The crowd parted like water, wolves scrambling backward, some shifting involuntarily in fear. Their eyes reflected my fire, wide and terrified, and finally understanding that something had changed. I stopped at the base of the platform, looked up at Jareth, watched the exact moment he recognized me. The color drained from his face. "No," he breathed. "You're dead. You're supposed to be." "Dead?" My voice came out layered with divine resonance, human and wolf and goddess speaking as one. "You're right. I did die. In the Forsaken Vale, bleeding and alone, giving birth to the daughters you decided weren't worth protecting. I died, Jareth, and something better rose from my ashes. I let the fire build, let my wings manifest massive, spanning 30 feet, each feather a tongue of living flame that cast dancing shadows across the faces of every wolf present. I am Alina Nightshade, I declared, my voice carrying to every corner of the courtyard. Phoenix Avatar, keeper of the sacred flame, and I have returned to offer you all a choice. "Seize her!" Cassandra shrieked. "She's an abomination! Guards!" 20 warriors surged forward. I didn't move, didn't even raise my hands. I just whispered one word, backed by Seraphina's power. "Kneel." The command rippled outward like a shockwave of heat. Every wolf warrior, Alpha, Omega, it didn't matter, felt their animal spirit submit, not to dominance, to divinity. Their wolves recognized what I carried, and they had no choice but to bow. 200 wolves dropped to their knees simultaneously, including the warriors who'd been mid-charge. Only Jareth remained standing, protected by his alpha aura, but barely. He was shaking, his wolf whining in his chest. "What have you become?" he whispered. "What you made me," I said simply. "You threw away a woman who loved you, who would have died for you, who did die for you. But the Phoenix goddess saw potential in my destruction. She saw that a soul broken enough could be remade into something strong enough to break the system that broke it in the first place." I ascended the platform steps, fire trailing behind me. Cassandra tried to run. I didn't stop her. Let her scramble off the stage, let her flee into the crowd. She was irrelevant. Jareth was all that mattered now. "I could kill you," I said conversationally, stopping 3 feet away. "I could strip the wolf from your bloodline, burn you to ash and scatter you across the veil. The goddess has given me that power." "Then do it," he said, and I heard the break in his voice. "I deserve it. I condemned you. I let them take our daughters. I stood there and did nothing while they dragged you away." Tears tracked down his face. I felt the bond snap and it felt like dying, and I still did nothing. "So do it. Kill me." "I don't want to live with what I've done." "That's the coward's way out," I said. "Death would be mercy. You don't get mercy. You get something worse." I placed my hand over his heart. The phoenix sigil on my chest blazed so bright wolves cried out and looked away. I strip you of your alpha status, I declared, and felt the power drain out of him like water from a broken vessel. Not through combat, not through challenge, but through judgment. You are not worthy to lead because you've forgotten the first law of leadership. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. Jareth collapsed to his knees, gasping. Without his alpha aura, he was just a man, just a wolf, ordinary and broken. I turned to face the crowd, still kneeling, still held in place by divine command. All of you built your packs on a lie, I said, my voice ringing with authority. The lie that strength means dominance, that power means the ability to hurt others. That worth is measured in how well you can force others to submit. You threw away the weak, the gentle, the different, the ones who dared to show vulnerability. You called it survival of the fittest. I call it waste. I gestured, and my ember-marked stepped out of the tree line. 20 wolves who'd been exiled, who should have died, who now burned with divine fire and stood tall in the face of the packs that had discarded them. These wolves were deemed worthless, too old, too soft, too different, and yet they survived what you swore would kill them. They built a community in a cursed forest. They learned that compassion is not weakness, it's the foundation of real strength. Because true power isn't the ability to dominate others, it's the resilience to rise after being destroyed. It's the courage to rebuild. It's the wisdom to know that any system that discards the weak is a system destined to burn. I raised my hands, and fire danced between my fingers. I institute a new law, written in flame and enforced by the Phoenix goddess herself. I call it the lesson of the flame. That which is burned away was never meant to stay, and that which survives is eternal. Your old hierarchies? Burned away. Your cruel traditions? Ash. Your belief that might makes right? Gone. The fire spread from my hands, racing across the ground, creating a circle that encompassed the entire courtyard. Not burning, transforming. Where the flames touched, the earth bloomed flowers I'd never seen before, gold and crimson and white, growing impossibly fast. You have a choice, I said. Join the sanctuary of cinders. Learn a new way. Build a world where power is used to protect, not oppress. Where worth is measured in kindness, not kill counts. Where no child is ever told she's worthless because of her gender, and no wolf is ever thrown away for being different. I paused, letting the weight of it settle. Or refuse. Keep your old ways, and watch as every exile, every discard, every wolf you deemed too weak to matter rises up with fire in their blood and burns your kingdoms to the ground. Not because we're cruel, but because some things need to burn before something better can grow. Silence. 200 wolves, still kneeling, staring at me with a mixture of fear and awe and something that might have been hope. Elder Marin stepped forward first, the elderly healer from Dark Moon who'd been exiled for being too old. I accept the lesson of the flame, she said clearly. Then Kira, then Torin, then every one of the ember-marked, their voices ringing out like a choir. And then, slowly, wolves from the crowd began to stand. An Omega from Night Ridge, a warrior from Silverfang who'd always hated the fighting, a young mother from Dark Moon. One by one, they crossed the fire circle and stood with us. Not all of them, maybe a third, but it was enough. I looked at Jareth, still kneeling on the platform, broken and weeping. Ilara and Mira are safe, I told him. They're with me, in the sanctuary, learning that their worth isn't determined by anyone's expectations. You'll never hurt them again. Never use them, never fail them again. I'm sorry, he choked out. Alina, I'm so sorry. I know, I said. And I did. I could see it in every line of his face, feel it in the broken bond that still ached between us. But sorry doesn't undo what was done. Sorry doesn't rebuild what you destroyed. You want redemption? Earn it. Learn the lesson of the flame. Become something better than what you were. I turned back to the crowd, to the wolves who'd chosen transformation over tradition. Welcome to the great rebirth, I said. Welcome to the age of the phoenix. Let's build something worth surviving for. Seraphina's voice resonated warm and proud in my mind. Well done, my phoenix. Well done. The fire bloomed brighter, and in its light, I saw the future. Not perfect, not easy, but possible. A world where being broken didn't mean being finished. Where falling didn't mean staying down. Where every discard, every exile, every wolf they'd tried to erase could rise again, stronger and more beautiful than before. The old world burned. The new world rose from its ashes. And the phoenix, finally, spread her wings and flew. This is where Alina's story transforms from tragedy to triumph. But here's the thing, stories like this only reach the people who need them if you decide they're worth spreading. Right now, someone out there is feeling discarded, told they're too much or not enough, labeled as weak for showing vulnerability or defective for being different. They need to hear that being broken isn't the end, that what others call weakness might actually be strength waiting to ignite, that the phoenix rises because of the ash, not in spite of it. But they'll never hear it unless you take action. The algorithm doesn't care about powerful messages. It cares about engagement. It needs to see likes, comments, and shares before it decides this story deserves to reach more people. So I'm asking you no. I'm challenging you to be part of Alina's revolution. Drop a comment telling me which moment hit hardest. Was it the courtyard confrontation? The reunion with her daughters? The moment she stripped Jareth's power? Your words matter. They tell the algorithm this story has value. Hit that like button like you're pressing an ember stone. Like you're choosing to believe that compassion is strength and resilience is power. Share this with someone who needs to remember they're not too broken to rise. Someone who's been told they're worthless and needs to hear that the world was wrong. Your conscience knows someone needs this. Your engagement could be the difference between this story dying in obscurity and reaching the person whose life it could change. Don't just witness the phoenix rising. Help her fly. Judy's Romance Library. That which is burned away was never meant to stay, and that which survives is eternal.